Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. A crazy few days in the Call of Duty world come to a conclusion with some massive results in the CDL tonight. OpTic Texas play their first game as a new four-man team, striking down the Boston Breach in Game 5. Maybe a sign of things to come for this roster. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Almost at 92,000 subs. I'm sure we can edit it tonight. You guys have been absolutely on fire lately. Let's dive into things. I mean, firstly, JoeDeceives was probably not in the greatest mood on the flag after the North London derby, let's say. But it was interesting to see some actual scrim intel here from CDL. Scrim intel suggesting that from his information, out of the new three new teams, OpTic, Los Angeles, Guerrillas and London, LAT have looked significantly the best out of those three in scrims. That was from intel from two CDL teams. That makes OpTic versus Boston very interesting because apparently Boston were also looking very good in scrims behind the scenes. And of course, they took down Rokkr comfortably on Friday. So I think actually most people had Boston picked to win that series, which is understandable. But, of course, we'll discuss it here in a couple of minutes' time. Before we get there, though, we've got to discuss, well, the memes have been everywhere, of course, as is usual. Also, this was spotted here from OpTic. It says Major 2 semi-finals. Obviously, just a bit of a graphical mistake, but obviously people were looking at this thinking, oh my god, it's rigged. They've got this it's already sorted that in the semis at the Major, it's going to be Boston versus OpTic. Not an unreasonable conclusion. It could actually happen there, especially with the Boston home crowds. But not the semi-finals yet for OpTic. They've got to make it there first. And also I thought it was kind of crazy, right? Scump and Methods go back a very long way indeed. Going into this series, Scump's career record against Methods is 12-4. Definitely not a particularly pretty one for Methods. And it, looked like it maybe was going to go in Boston's favour today, but didn't work out that way in the end. Now, firstly, we've got to talk Ultra versus Florida. Really interesting series. First of all, Major Minnick was going off on the main stage at the start of this game. I looked away for about 60 seconds, came back and Ultra just way in the lead. So they turned this one around massively. But when they're up 235 to 165, I'm pretty sure was the scoreline, the game crashed. I think Standy lagged out. And what do you do in that case? This is the frustrating thing, not having a replay feature, the fact that the servers on Activision side are just dodgy as hell, and we hadn't had too many issues so far, but this was a big one, right? You're 15 points away from winning, the game crashes. What does the CDL do? The rule is it's a full replay, which is pretty outrageous to be honest, right? Now, again, it doesn't make much sense to, what else do you do? Because if you say, all right, we're going to start again, but if Toronto get to 15 points, they win, and Florida have to get to 95 points or whatever to win, I don't know, bit messy one. I'm not sure what the correct solution is. The correct solution is for the game to not be broken and to be able to actually replay from those circumstances. They can't, they had to replay it, but they won it anyway. Fair play to Toronto, because usually winning the replay is not an easy feat to do. Vickle then dropped 7 kills in the control, but Florida did win the game 2 search and destroy in their favour, but it was the final map of their series that went Toronto's way again. Their respawn is just so much better generally than Florida's. It's going to be tough to beat them. Scrappy had a 1.6 this series. As he says, 1-4-1. Wasted my time in the replay. We keep working, man. Scrappy is just, this guy can't be stopped, I'm telling you. Wasted my time in the replay is so funny. Like, the extra 10 minutes he spent, he was like, I wanted to spend that time chilling out or something, or, I don't know, grinding some chows, rather than playing these bums that are not going to improve off playing, and that seems to be his opinion. Even this was the immediate reaction here from Scrappy, when, he makes his opinions quite clear in the top left-hand side of your screen about the ability that these guys he believes actually have. So just hilarious stuff. Insight's getting into it as well with the trash talk now. So Scrappy is rubbing off on his teammates, and these were the numbers. Standy, Scrappy, Insight doing their thing. Yes, CleanX 50 kills, who cares? They won the series pretty comfortably. If it goes game 5, who knows what could happen here. Vickle had a bit of a rough one, because Florida always going to be scary in 5, but Toronto win all the respawns as was pretty much expected by most people today. Let's talk about it then. Massive series, OpTic versus the Boston Breach, the first series with this new OpTic Texas team. Would they be good? Would they be terrible? Would the coaching staff, would that drama re-emerge? The bowling drama certainly re-emerged to a certain extent, and even before the game one happened, I think we've got another clip I can share for you guys, which is this one, which is in the bottom right hand side. This observer has got the bowling up on his telly, which I think is absolutely hilarious. You probably can't quite see it if I zoom in here, but it's still just great spot. I guess this is obviously pre-planned. I doubt that he was just doing this for fun, but nonetheless very entertaining stuff. Now, game 1 went OpTic's way pretty comfortably, and this was the absolute Zio show here. Scump did his thing, and look, Scump's still frying in this new roster, but all of the guys were going off. iLLeY was having a great time. Now, iLLeY's visa is an issue, and he is playing right now from Canada. He's actually playing from the Toronto headquarters, which so good guys for Toronto actually letting him do that, and obviously they have crazy internet up there, the Bell Fiber or whatever they've got, which is 5,000 up, 5,000 down with one ping. So I'm sure iLLeY was having a decent time connecting to whatever server they were on, but yeah, this seemed to work very well for them. All the Zeo guys went off. Huke especially was phenomenal this series. Game 2, though, does go back the way of Boston. Generally, you would expect that a team that has formed relatively recently aren't going to be quite as good in Search and Destroy. Boston Surge should be more refined. It's just how it goes. Like, the teams usually, a new roster will usually click better first in Respawn, and then the Search and Destroy comes later. Certainly in your first series as a team, your Search isn't usually going to be great. But, you know, so Boston win the Game 2, they tie up the series. Game 3 was a very interesting one, actually. I mean, this is one particular moment here from this Search and Destroy where, you know, Boston are pretty good at this map anyway, actually, the Embassy Search and Destroy. Regardless, iLLeY, though, with the sniper, it's got to be said. This guy can now use the sniper full time without having to worry too much because now he's the main AR. He doesn't have to worry about needing to be a faster paced player. He's got the faster paced players, so he doesn't have to worry so much when he uses the sniper, which means he can be more comfortable even on that roll, and he was like hitting every single shot today. And then this is where Huke came into his own, and I do think there's an element here, same with Priester, same with Standy, of, you know, but even in Huke's case, people certainly forgetting who this guy Huke is. Like, we know how disgusting this guy's been for years. He's been on a couple of difficult team dynamics. This clip is just one example of, yes, the Vaznev meta is very good, and also arguably suits OpTic very nicely right now because Scump can use the third Vaznev when he likes. Scump can just do whatever he wants, which is pretty much ideal here. He can use the Dead Silence if he wants, he can use the trophies if he wants, he can use whatever gun, and, you know, just can fry and be comfortable, and the rest of the guys will enable that, and I think that's the way to go for this team. That's why I liked this change, and I'm not going to sit here after this series and say, oh yeah, my opinion was totally right, and OpTic, it was a good change for OpTic and all this, because I do think it was a good change. I think this change works for both parties. Dashy needs to go somewhere else, and I think this was the right move for OpTic in terms of changing around the roles. It's worked out pretty well so far. I mean, Scump was just absolutely doing it all towards the end of this game. They got up 2-1. They probably should have won the series more easily because the final round had to get replayed again, and thankfully for OpTic's headspace at least, it actually worked out in their favour. They won it anyway. But even Pred was talking about the replay cheese, so you know, again, kind of backing up his boys on OpTic, that potentially he might join at some point in the future, or maybe not. We shall see on that one, but could be sooner or later, depending on the situation over there at Seattle and also the success of this OpTic lineup. But yeah, eventually OpTic get through another replay drama. I don't want to go too much into depth on that because generally it was okay this weekend and it's been okay so far this season. But then Boston bounced back. I feel like OpTic will feel like they should have maybe won this. In fairness, they were down quite a lot. They brought it back to almost a winning position, and then Methods hit a nice flank, got 2 kills, and that was job done, 250 to 244. So OpTic almost won the series in 3 respawns. That would have been very impressive. They didn't, though. It went game 5, and a game 5 where they went down 2-0. And this is what actually quite impressed me a lot with this team, is because, you know, the mental of the previous iteration was not great. And I thought that bringing back, this is effectively the Dallas Empire core. Huke is now back there. The chemistry between the SMG duos, I think, is better in terms of pacing on the map. Scump even admitted that after the series. The pacing was their real issue. They've got that relationship with Rambo. Whether you think Rambo's coaching style is good or not, it's been a successful combination in the past, and it probably will continue to be if this series is anything like what might happen in the future. They go down 2-0. They bring back 5 rounds in a row to go up 5-2, and this is where I was like, okay, let's see what happens here, right? Because a 5-2 lead with Dashy is what they had at Major 1. They choked that 5-2 lead against Florida. They then lost the series, went out to the tournament, and this, they had a 5-2 lead. It became 5-3, and then they closed it out. Now, in fairness, I'm going to say Boston are, of all teams in the world, that closing out a 5-3 advantage is okay against, Boston would be one of them because, you know, they are one of these teams that does like to turtle up a little bit, and I don't think Boston are really a team that's going to do a crazy comeback in Search like a Florida might do, but nonetheless, right, OpTic going up 5-3 and closing it out, that's, it's going to happen eventually, but nonetheless, for their first series as a team, and also winning a game 5 and clutching up in that fashion is impressive stuff. So I do believe that this is a step in the right direction, this change. I think that, you know, putting Scump to the AR is the way to go. iLLeY did seem more comfortable as well. The SMGs worked, like, Huke looked great individually. Shotzzy didn't do much as well this series. He had some okay moments, but, like, he wasn't doing anything crazy, and they still won the majority of the respawns relatively comfortably and clutched up game 5. So whether this says anything on the Dashy versus Rambo thing, like, look, if OpTic had have lost today, would it have been, oh yeah, Rambo, terrible coach, all this, like, shouldn't have dropped Dashy? No, right? First series as a team. And the other way around, it's the same story. It's early days, but I think this is good promise. I think if you guys are OpTic fans, you want to see this team do well, want to see Scump have a good final year, it's a good, promising start against a very solid Boston team that has been looking great recently, at least, well, in their series. They played on Friday up against Minnesota Rokkr, where they took them down without too much difficulty. Now, I've got to share for you guys as well the immediate reaction here from Scump and his thoughts on the situation, why they made the change, the pacing being crucial, but also some nice words for Dashy that I thought was, you know, to put all this stuff to bed maybe for the time being. We know the relationships there might not be perfect, perfect. But yeah, I thought it was some nice words here from Scump, really.
Seth, talk to me about like the change you guys made, because I know a lot of people would look at your last roster and be like, do they have the perfect players for every single role? You bring in Huke, switching some things up. What are you guys hoping to improve on from the last roster that you had? Like, what's the focus, the identity change that you guys are looking for?
Just really pacing, I think. So me, I'm kind of more of a slower sub, and that's kind of known. Kyler and Ann are both just crackheads, and they run around. So, I mean, I have some pretty large shoes to fill, filling in Brandon's shoes as a flex. But yeah, we're just trying to work on our fundamentals and all the things like that, work on our pacing, and it'll come because, again, I went from having a trophy at the start of the week to having dead silence for 3 days, and then I had a trophy again today. So we're still kind of trying to figure, so I've been all over the place. So we're trying to figure things out still.
And these were the overall numbers then, pretty much what you want to see from OpTic. Your mainly are in iLLeY at 1.14 KD, Scump doing the main slaying. This is, I think, where Scump will be now. He's in that role, 1.2 KD, most damage pretty much in the lobby, certainly on his team. That's what he'll be doing very regularly, I think, for this roster. And then in addition to Scump frying and being enabled very well, you've then got Huke and Shotzzy on your SMGs. Like, that's not bad either. So I do think this team has a lot of potential. And if they can keep clutching up their search and destroys, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And then how about this one to close out the weekend, though? So LAG versus LA Thieves, the LA derby. And it was going to be a great one for many reasons. Exceed versus Drazah. And that kicked off again, as we'll see in a second. That storyline got even better. But LAG have dominated this match so far in the CDL. Thieves obviously weren't around in the first year of Modern Warfare, but since then they were 4-0. This was their first matchup here in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 with an entirely new team. This team, LAG, looked pretty good in the first part of their series earlier in the weekend. LA Thieves looked actually like they could have beaten New York, but then kind of choked it a bit. Game 1, though, was JoeDeceives show, man. It's great to see this guy who was basically spotted in ranks play, was good friends with some of the FaZe guys. He's already at that level. I thought that when they brought him in, it might take him an adjustment period for him to actually be competitive, but yeah, this guy's hit the CDL and immediately looks like a top tier SMG, to be honest. He was on fire this series. Thieves had no answer for him. Game 2 as well, JoeDeceives, there was one round here where JoeDeceives and Exceed had a 2 versus 4, and somehow they clutched it out. Octane like teammated. It was another classic search and destroy disaster class from Los Angeles Thieves. They lose this one. They do bounce back and win the control, but nonetheless, there was the possibility here for a 3-0, which would go very nicely with the 3-0'd when it mattered, etc, etc. What, Drazah said to Exceed a few years ago now, and that storyline repeated itself beautifully. Unfortunately, not quite with a 3-0, but nonetheless a 3-1. It didn't take long after Thieves had won the Game 3 Fortress control for them to get bodied in Game 4 again on Fortress, and Los Angeles Guerrillas win 2 respawns. And look at what Exceed's saying, right? I mean, look, you don't need to be a professional lip reader to figure out what Exceed is talking about here. 3-1s, talking to Drazah, and I do wonder what this guy is saying behind the camera there, and he keeps on going, and for good reason, right? I mean, look, there's been a lot of trash talk between a lot of these guys and Exceed's getting his own back right here with a pretty comfortable victory at the end of the day, it's got to be said. What's going on with Thieves? Very interesting question. I'm sure we'll discuss it over the coming days in more detail. They've never been that good online anyway, but losing the LA derby again is obviously concerning signs for them, starting off 0-2 as well in the qualification stage. Certainly not good looking good for Los Angeles Thieves, so they've got something to turn around. But LAG, as soon as Arcitys, actually his PC was working or whatever, he's already having a good time. So, crazy series, and immediately the hands go on the head of Kenny, and that maybe the YY needs to finally come to an end, I don't know. But this was the tweet, if you guys don't know the story, from 2020, when Drazah matched up with Exceed, and Exceed was talking all this trash. Drazah shut him down with the following, got a lot of traction at the time, and Exceed just bounced back with this, get out of here, he said. So look, it's only a qualification match. It's, we'll see what happens if these guys match up at a major, but nonetheless, exciting stuff. And I'm sure so much that could be said on this topic, but I'm sure there'll be more to talk about in the coming days, because we've got a lot through already today. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. This I thought was kind of funny from Guerrillas, and that does extend, as Brian Stats confirms, the record of Los Angeles Guerrillas against LA Thieves to 5-0 across the last 3 titles. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.